Okay, so now we're officially going to get started with our first presenter of the day. We have the Director of Migration and Refugee Services at the Catholic Community Services of Utah with a presentation about the reality of Somali youth migration. So let's invite him up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you could hear me okay. My name is Adan Batar. I'm the Director of the Migration and Refugee Services for Catholic Community Services of Utah, the great state of Utah in the United States. Just to give you a little background, the work that I do, then I will dive into the presentation. I have been doing migration and resettlement work for over 30 years now. And this is something dear to my heart, as myself have been a refugee that was resettled in the United States. Migration is a very positive thing, as my colleague have said earlier. But I think it comes with a lot of challenges and a lot of risks as well. So I'm going to focus more on the challenges and the risks that migration comes with it. Because if migration is not done in a right way, it will cost people's lives. And that's why it is so important that we need to look at that perspective. So that way, I see some of our friends from Somali federal government and state representatives as well. And I'm in no way that I'm criticizing anyone here. It's just that I have done some research, and what research shows and what the youth that I have talked to have told me about, that's all I'm sharing with. So please bear with me, and while we're putting up the presentation, I just want to give you a little, summary of also, as you have seen in the news, many countries, especially in the Europe and also in the United States, we have seen some negative policies have been implemented to combat the illegal migration, as they call it. And I think that has been created a lot of difficulty, people that are taking the wrong road to migrate into Europe and the United States. I'm not going to focus more on the European migration, but I will focus more on the U.S. because that's what I know so much, and I can share with you some of the things that we have been seeing in the United States. This boat in the picture, you can see, this boat has been, I don't know how many years ago, you can see how many people on this boat, and that boat finally was capsized, and many people lost their lives as they were trying to, cross the Mediterranean Sea. Next slide, please. So, some of the research that I have seen, it shows that more than 60% of the Somali young men, they're motivated to leave their country because they don't see any future or they don't have any hope. And they think that migration is the only solution to leave the Somalia and go to the West to seek a better life. There's so many factors that are contributing, which I will go into detail as well, why youth are leaving. But we know that the unemployment rate in Somalia, especially for the young people, are overwhelmingly more than 35%. That is not a small number, it's huge. And I think when you look at the unemployment, people when they are not employed, how are they going to survive? So we have seen a lot of young men in Somalia or girls that don't have any jobs. For the last 5-6 years, there are over almost 17,000 or more young Somali people have been in the move as they were trying to leave Somalia. But this is the lower end. There are many that this study hasn't been counted. And about 70% of those that are migrating are young men. And that's really a large number. And I think the other thing that contributing why people are out migrating Somalia is that because of the poverty. 70% of Somalis live under the poverty line. It is a huge number, and it should be shocking. And so, the next slide, please. So why do Somali youth migrate? So we said that there's a number of factors that are contributing. Of course, the unemployment is the biggest contributor to the Somali youth. Why are they migrating? They feel that they don't have opportunity, no jobs, no financial stability, and they feel that, that they don't have a better future staying in Somalia. And the educational system in Somalia, since the collapse of the former government, there's so many schools that were open, and and most of the schools, especially university, focused on the major subjects like doctor or engineering or law or many of those subjects. But there's a lot of other, things that have been neglected, especially in the trade. We know that the construction in Somalia is really booming. But we don't have enough, people who have skills in electricians, plumbers. We don't have schools that are teaching those type of skills. We see most often we bring those skilled labor, we're bringing them from our neighboring countries in Kenya or other parts, and so I think that's one thing that our schools are really lacking, and also the educational system is not consistent as well. There's a lot of peer pressure that our young people in Somalia have been pressured to leave Somalia, and because they see their friends are living, and those that made that journey when they reach in Europe or America, they sending information and saying, hey, I made it and this was really nice and look where I am, and they sending pictures, and as we know, Somalia, they have really a strong smugglers network that are really taking a lot of money from these young folks and promising them that they're going to take to the Western countries. I have heard that they charge as much as 20,000, 30,000 or even more, which is really a large amount of money that they have been taking people and then leaving people on situations where that could put their lives in danger, like the boat that I showed you earlier. Like if you pay 20,000, 30,000 and you were put in that boat, is that worth that money that you paid or your life? And then the last, factor that I know that our government in Somalia is doing its best to secure the country and provide, the stability, but there's still a long road ahead of us. And our young men and women, they still feel that it is not safe for them to stay, so they want to go to a safer place. That is another factor that contributing for them to leave the country. So the risks and challenges faced by the Somali migrants are so many, and I just chose just a few that the study talks about what kind of risks that the migrants face. Of course, physical and sexual abuse is one of the biggest one that the migrants, across the board, they face as they're trying to cross borders. There is a lot of detention and deaths that have been documented, especially, I think many of you might have heard a man named Magafe. I don't know if many of you have heard that in Libya, that many young people have been held hostage and was, people have been beaten, and they were asked, where are your families, and they used to call their families and, ask a ransom, and thousands of dollars have been, wired, and the Libyan government, I know they were trying to do its best, but still those kind of things are happening in the Sinai Desert. Also is happening. Many migrants have been also in that situation. There's also, the unmet expectation when the migrants, flee, and they have a high hope that they're going to make to the West, and but most of the time they don't achieve that goal as they were trying to, to make that journey. Some lost their lives, and in the ocean or in the road, and some ended up in detention centers, and then they will send back. So that is a huge, disappointment to the migrants that paid that much money, and then they're trying to make that journey. And then finally, those that made that journey in their final destinations, whether they reach Europe or America or other countries, sometimes they don't get what they expected. Oh, I'm going to get the legal status immediately upon, entering those countries. That is not the case, especially in the United States nowadays. People have to wait 5 years for their cases to be heard by an immigration court. They cross the border, they are given immigration, court dates. What do they do in the interim? Why are they awaiting their cases to be heard? They're doing a lot of, jobs that really inhumane condition. Sometimes they make $10, and that doesn't even pay their bills while they're waiting for that. So I have seen a lot of young men coming to us and saying, how can I get a job, and $10 is not enough for me, and we had to tell them, sorry, until you file your asylum case and you are given work authorization, this is how you need to do to manage your life, because the U.S. government would not provide them any benefits while people are waiting for their cases to be heard. So addressing the youth migration, so I think the first priority would be, the Somali government and international community need to work together, to create opportunities for these young people, employment, education, and most importantly, we need to create a lot of hope for this youth. Make sure that this is their country, and they're the future of the country, and that we need to provide whatever support that they need so they can succeed, in their countries. There has to be a collaboration across sectors. The state authorities, private organizations, and nonprofits should work together to halt the flight of Somali youth. I think we need to do a lot of education. That's the most important. If we don't educate our youth about the migration, they think that the migration is a good thing, and they don't know the journey ahead of them. There's a right way to do migration, which I will be happy to discuss later. But I think, as I was talking, many of the youth here, and many of them, they were asking me questions about how can we, safely migrate to Europe and the United States. That is a huge topic, and I'll be happy to talk to them or answer any questions they may have. But I think right now we need to address this issue of this, difficult and deadly journey that our youth have been taking, because I don't know how many more lives we need to lose. So what do we need to do to halt or to stop this difficult migration that our young people have been taking? So, of course, I think it has been mentioned, economic development. It is very important, as the minister was talking about that earlier, and we definitely have to create opportunity for the youth. employment, especially for young people. There is a lot, because when our country needs to be rebuilt, there's a lot of construction, there's a lot of things that we need to do. Youth can take part of that, the labor force. But if we don't train them, if we don't give them the skills that they need, it's going to be impossible for them to take. They will see jobs being taken by foreign nationals who the business community are bringing from other countries, while our youth is sitting there and don't have jobs. I think that is a wasted resource that we have in our own country. I mentioned that about the trade, schools that we need to create. Remember that we used to have polytechnical. We need to have more polytechnical schools in our country that, we could teach our youth, the skills that they need, so they can get all these skills they need. Of course, the political stability and security is also important. I know that the government institutions are working on that, so I think we need to do more on that, so the youth feels that it is safe for them to remain in their home countries. We need to engage youth in the decision making. I think, in the political involvement, if we don't allow youth to have that involvement, they won't feel that this is part of their country. And so I would encourage our government leaders to look that into an important aspect, that youth is our treasure, and we need to get them involved in the political, process. The international cooperation, I see our, especially our friends from the IOM. I think we need your help in looking into this situation. Very importantly, whatever you could do to address this difficult migration issues. I know IOM has a lot of experience in the migration, and but I think we're losing our youth, and however way that we could create a safer way for them to migrate, whether it would be working with UNHCR to see the youths that are in different refugee camps in different countries, and on how we can safely help them migrate to whatever their final destination. And the most importantly, awareness campaign. I think that's what we need to invest a lot. And so we can educate, we can, give, information for the youth, so that way they understand the risk that they are taking. And then those of us in the diaspora, we have also a responsibility to help in this issue. I know there is a crucial, things that we can do to help the youth migration. Economic development, I will add again that it is very important to, I have seen a lot of diaspora, going back into Somalia and creating opportunities for businesses and contributing to the economic growth. And so that is very important that, that aspect we need to increase. Preserving cultural heritage, because when those of us who have been in the diaspora and go back, and we could serve as a role model for our youth, and when we're creating these opportunities for them. And social and political engagement, I touch on that. It is very important that we create opportunities for our youth to be engaged, and also in the social and political related to the future, both their country and also the countries where they expected to migrate to. And finally, network is very important as well. Somali diaspora, they can network, they can create the bridge between the two countries, and because we are learning a lot from the countries where we migrated to, and so we need to transfer those skills, whatever we learn, to our country. I think IOM is doing a great program in attracting the diaspora, those especially that have professional skills that they're asking to come back, and definitely I concur that what you guys are doing, and we need to do more on that. I think the main thing is that, in conclusion, that Somali young people is our biggest resources that we have in our country. You probably have seen an example when former German chancellor, when the crisis in Syria, when we have a lot of migrants fleeing, and she opened the door, and they were taking hundreds of thousands of Syrian, and they benefited from that in Germany and many other countries, for all those migrants that are going to those countries, because their population is aging out, so they need more people. And I think many countries are benefiting from our young folks when they migrate to those countries, and but we as Somalis are losing. Our country is losing, and when we lose that many young folks that are leaving the country, I don't know tomorrow how we can replace our aging population when it comes to that level. So there is really a responsibility for all of us that we need to take this issue very seriously. And I hope I had more time, then I could have talked to you more about this issue. There's a couple references that I want to point it out. These are just a few studies that have been done about this issue, but we need to do more studies to look into this issue so we can get more accurate data. And I'm sorry I couldn't get more references, but at least these are the two that I highly recommend if anybody wants to read this. And our friends from our federal government officials, I challenge you as well. And please take this as very seriously. And we need to do, really whatever we can do. And those of us in the diaspora, we are also willing to help whatever we can do, especially in the area that I work. I have seen the youth, the challenges that they're facing when they come to America. One story that one young man shared with me is that he left Mogadishu and he went all the way to Brazil. And he paid $20,000 to a smuggler. And when he was taken to Brazil, he was taken by land from Brazil all the way to Mexico. Imagine how many countries that they have to go through. And finally, when he reached the border between U.S. and Mexico, you have seen the wall that I showed you earlier. It is, I don't know, more than almost some areas is like 10 feet, and it's really huge. So they climbed that, and then they had to jump that fence. Imagine 10 feet fence. If you jump, what's going to happen to you? Some of them breaking their legs, and some of them dying. Some of them. Luckily, this gentleman, he did not broke his leg. He made it, and he was arrested. And after 2 days in detention, he was released, and he was given, a court date. And then he came to our city in Salt Lake City, and so we are helping him to get his legal status. But how many that could not make it? So, and I really thank you for listening, and I hope later we would have an opportunity for Q&A session, and I would be happy to answer any question. Thank you.